Tell me about yourself. Why are you running?
Thanks, Haley. Well, a little bit about myself is born and raised in Tulsa. Really spent the last 8 years in Oklahoma City, married to my best friend Brittany of 20 years. Recently, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. I'm a father of 3 beautiful children, Callie 16, Frankie 14, and Mary Catherine is 8. The why is service is so important to me. My first job out of college was I became a state trooper with the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, and something that really embodies the servant heart in Chip Keating is after the Oklahoma City bombing. And I was 15 years old when that tragedy occurred. My father had only been governor for about 3 months. I remember that day vividly, where I was, kind of swooped up by some Oklahoma State troopers and reunited with my parents. And what I saw occurring were selfless men and women that were first responders running to danger, not away from it. My parents were down here at the tragic site of the Murrah building, and I knew at that point that I wanted to be one of them. That's what led me into the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. By God's grace, I was a proud graduate of the 53rd Oklahoma Highway Patrol Academy, which I did for nearly 4 years, and got to see a lot of what I would say kind of the darker side, unfortunately, of life, working the hoot shifts from 8 to 6 in the morning. God took me in a different path, went to the private sector, and really cut my teeth around a titan in really Oklahoma, Aubrey McClendon. Went out, set out in my professional experiences on my own, in my own oil and gas and real estate companies. And so I've signed payroll, take risks. I've built and sold multiple businesses with Aubrey and on my own. But service has always been so central in my heart. I'm the past president of the Salvation Army here in Central Oklahoma, past president of Children's Hospital Foundation. I'm a former board member of OU Health, a former board member of the Hospital Authority Trust. I've started a foundation, my wife and I did, for first responders in the state. And so this moment, I think, after I served as Oklahoma Secretary of Public Safety with Governor Kevin Stitt, I really thought I was going to finish out my life here in Oklahoma City, in our great state in Oklahoma. We love it here. I was going to be a dad and raise our kids, and I'm still going to be a dad up until about a year ago. And I tell people as I travel around the state and as I speak, this is not something that I really thought I would be doing. I clearly understand what this is. I've grown up around it, but I think my experiences in life have put me in a unique position to solve the state's problems. So I tell people, I don't like the slogan, Oklahoma's okay. That means we're average and marginal. And I'm running for a greater Oklahoma, and I think we need a governor for Oklahoma and not of Oklahoma. And as I assess the candidate field, to me, I think we need a true outsider that hadn't held public office and that's not, office hopping around for jobs. I think Oklahoma's at an absolute crossroads, and which road we take is going to be very important as we're dealing with the issues nationally, but really migration changes around our country. Oklahoma's positioned to be a big benefactor in that, but we have big problems that need to be solved. And I know we'll probably get into those problems, but that's the why, my background and who I am.
As you're talking to Oklahomans, what is the biggest issue that they're facing right now?
Yeah, I think there's 3 really big issues, not to any particular order, but we hear a lot about education. That's a big one. As I think about taxes, and taxes is a big issue, and I don't like the word reform. Reform is empty. I like restructuring, change. And so we've got to go really comprehensively look at our tax system as a whole. It hasn't had a total overhaul since 1930. It's 2025. We are a different state than we were in 1930. And then public safety in general and crime. And we see these illicit grows across our state. We have an out-of-control marijuana problem. It has not been dealt with. We have our enemies operating within the boundaries of our state, not our friends. And so I talk to people, we separate the 2 issues. There's medical marijuana and there's an illicit drug crisis going on in our state. And these things are very solvable, all of these issues, but it's going to take real courage and real leadership And I think I have the skill set, and I think Oklahomans, when I resonate and connect with them, and I will travel every square inch of the state, which I've already been doing, I think that Oklahomans will see that I'm the right person to actually fix these issues, and I'm doing this for the right reasons. And if anybody that's running for public office, it should be a real sacrifice. And for me, I'm stepping away from my businesses at a time in my life when you get one shot at being a dad, and so this is obviously a disruption for our family. Early mornings, late evenings, but it's worth it because what's at stake here is the future of our state, and I believe the next governor is going to set that tone for the next 50 years.
You talked about, being an outsider and not having a long political career like your other two main opponents. What else sets you aside from those other two men?
Well, I think a lot of things. I'm unequivocally and unapologetically a conservative in this race, and I watch those two gentlemen beating each other up about who's lesser of a Democrat. I don't have legacy problems about who I've supported in the past because I can honestly say I've always been a conservative. Since the day I could vote, I vote often, and as I used to support other candidates, I would only support conservatives. I've never given money to Democrats. And some of my other opponents in this race are having to explain that and define that. So unapologetically, Chip Keating's never been a Barack Obama or a Joe Biden supporter.
We have seen quite a few ads from both of your other opponents, some controversial ones. We haven't seen much from you in the ad space quite yet. Why is that, and what are your takes on some of the other ads that you've seen so far?
Well, as I talk to people, I think when you decide when I got to the yes to run for office, a couple of things. You've got to be ready for what's going to come at you, right? And you've got to be ready to defend that. And so as I think through what's in my closet and skeletons per se in your closet, well, I don't have any skeletons per se. And so where I think you're seeing from the other folks, the mudslinging, they're having to defend some of the record in the past, and they're going to have a lot to defend. And so, given I don't have a public, record at the Capitol as an outsider, I'm not going to have as much to defend in the past. But what I will tell you is I travel the state, and the reception's been incredible. People want a message of hope. They don't like the negativity and the mudslinging. So the Oklahomans that I'm talking to all over the state like hearing my message of a hopeful message and how we're going to actually go fix problems and not attacking one another.
By the end of his term, Kevin Stitt will have served 8 years as governor. What are some of the things that you align with him on, and what are some things that you would maybe want to do a little bit differently?
Well, I think Kevin Stitt is a really good man. He's a good friend of mine. I align with Kevin a lot on tax policy. I'm grateful what he was able to do with school choice. I'm very grateful what he was able to do, but unfortunately it was turned down the Supreme Court with business courts. I'm grateful what he's able to do with behind the meter. And as I think about some of these legislative initiatives that he has won on, fully in alignment. He's a great God-fearing man and a good human being. I would say where we're a little bit different is on the tribal relations. I would say Governor Chip Keating would hit the reset button with our tribal partners across the state day one and figure out how the tribes and the state work in collaboration. And unfortunately, that's been a rocky relationship, and that would probably be the one issue that really differentiates Kevin Stitt and Chip Keating as two people.
With that, would you see any kind of tribal council, any kind of, bringing tribal leaders to the table on some of these issues?
100%. And as I think about whether it's tribal issues, whether it's healthcare issues, whether it's oil and gas issues, whether it's tax policy issues, the thing Chip Keating would be committed to, and unfortunately far too many times stakeholders are not at the table in the Capitol, and a lot of times bills are run and bills are passed in the Capitol that frankly stakeholders have had no engagement in. And I think that's bad governing and bad policy. And so whether it be tribal matters or any other matters, those stakeholders need to have a voice and a seat at the table. The governor ultimately makes a decision, but I would be committed to having incredibly bright, collaborative people around me, because that's what the citizens of Oklahoma deserve and expect.
And then for the first time in, a few cycles, we'll have a new governor, a new attorney general, a new state superintendent, quite a few new public offices. How would you work with those other state officials, other state agencies, even the legislature?
Yeah, and so obviously going into this, you need to understand how the apparatus is structured and our governance, and we are a populous state, and so the legislature holds a lot of authority, and I think it's imperative that the governor lead the legislature on a mandate, but the legislature needs to be more we and us and not I. Let the legislature win on these issues, and I think the most effective type of governor that Oklahoma deserves and needs is a governor that's going to lead with the bully pulpit. One of my historical idols is Theodore Roosevelt, and Theodore Roosevelt probably was one of the best presidents that was able to utilize the bully pulpit, and a lot of the historical pictures, him in the back of a train. You got to get out and connect with people. I love doing that. I love people. One of the most rewarding things in doing this so far is just talking to people and what's on their mind, and I think that's going to be very important for me as the governor to be out there and connecting with people, because the issues that resonate with people, that's a movement in the legislature, and then there's accountability to their constituents, and I think that's how we're going to get a bold policy agenda pushed forward for Oklahoma.
You talked about your law enforcement background. What would you say was the biggest thing you learned as a trooper and as secretary that you would carry on into this next role?
Well, unfortunately, there are bad people in society. There are bad things in society, but I'll tell you, courage, loyalty, humility, authenticity, professionalism, a lot of those things are embodied in the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, and I think that's why you see the general public, for the most part, has a high degree of trust around the institution of the Oklahoma Highway Patrol because of the professionalism. And so I learned so much of that defines who Chip Keating is. It's really carried with me. A piece of me has really never left the Highway Patrol. I'm still very involved with the department. My best friends in the world are troopers, and frankly, both my wife and I, we spend a lot of time in our very rare free time now with troopers and off-duty troopers and their spouses. That is who I am. Those values, plus my family upbringing values, will absolutely carry forward into the governor's office. And I brought those values with me as well as Secretary of Public Safety. And I was sitting as Secretary of Public Safety during a very trying time, during the George Floyd riots and the Black Lives Matter movement, and going through the movement of defunding the police. And I will tell you, Oklahoma's not agnostic to that. Those flare-ups tried to kind of happen here, and some certain leaders were allowing it to happen, but I can tell you, we as a state did not. And I, by the grace of God, was in that position with Governor Stitt for a reason. We didn't waver, and we activated our emergency response teams and the Oklahoma Highway Patrol and the National Guard, and we hit hard on those thugs and the anarchists that were here to do harm, and arrested 39 out-of-state bad actors. They were not our fellow friends and citizens in Oklahoma. They were disruptors, and we didn't see the burning and the lawlessness and the chaos like a lot of others saw around the country. And frankly, Oklahoma set a model and an example. And at the time, President Trump was in, and he talked about that as well, that Oklahoma did it right. And so that's leadership and that's courage. And so that's where I've been personally tested and delivered for Oklahoma.
Your dad was governor during the most difficult time in this state. What did you learn from him during that time, and what would you do to set yourself apart from him?
Well, sure. I think he led Oklahoma in a very gracious way, both he and my mom. What I learned from my father is George Washington really would lead from the front, and I think you saw that kind of leadership from Frank Keating. I remember it because I was a freshman in high school, and my dad literally would sleep on cots in downtown at the bombing site with first responders and asked them what they needed. He was there, boots on the ground, with them on the front line and in the fight. That's the kind of leader I am, as a frontline leader and not a bureaucrat from behind. And so, I would say the difference is between Chip Keating and Frank Keating. My dad's been in politics his whole life. I think the different side of Chip is I've been a businessman. I understand politics, or I wouldn't be sitting here and running, and I think that's separates me. I have a unique context, but I am an outsider and I'm a businessman. But I come from a trusted political family in our state during some very trying times, and I'm going to apply some of my business practices that my father did not have. I think that's a skill set that I will bring as governor, and it will serve the state well.
What do the next however many months between now and November look like for you, and how do you get your message out to Oklahomans?
Well, clearly, and I get a lot of questions. Hey, when are you going on TV? When are you doing digital? When are you doing that? And we have a really good team around us and a plan. And so we will. We've got the infrastructure in place. And you've got to have the infrastructure in place to get your message out. So we have those tools, and we'll be doing that very soon to introduce who I am to the state. But I'm traveling everywhere. I mean, yesterday I gave 3 speeches. I'm moving all around. I've been to, all western, eastern, northern Oklahoma already, southern Oklahoma. We have to go out and touch people. At the end of the day, Oklahoma is unique. We're 4 million strong, and as I tell people, it's one of the most rewarding things doing this. We're 1 degree of separation away from knowing one another. That makes Oklahoma unique. Not every state has that. I mean, you think about Texas as a country, 44 million people. You might be 8 degrees of separation from wanting or knowing one another. And so I think there's 2 sides of a campaign. There's the digital media, typical thing you see on TV, but retail politics in Oklahoma are still very real. You got to shake a lot of hands, and it's important to talk to a lot of people. And so I'm going to work 7 days a week, early mornings, late nights, to make sure I get out and shake as many hands as I can between now and the primary.
As you're meeting and talking with people, was there anything surprising that you've heard or anything that was really eye-opening that you didn't expect to hear from voters?
No, I'll tell you, the response, at least for me getting into the race, has been overwhelmingly positive, which is humbling. I think people can connect with me pretty quickly and realize there's authenticity and humility behind me as a person. I think that's what people in Oklahoma are wanting in their next leader and their next governor, someone that can relate with them. And so I'm humbled by it. The reception's been unreal, and so no surprises just yet, and it's been a really good response.
Final thing here is, what would be your biggest goal as governor, and what is your biggest message to Oklahomans?
Well, the biggest message is Oklahoma can be and will be greater. We're not going to be okay anymore. And so the biggest goal, I would say, we have to execute on the top 3 priorities that I just mentioned. We have to fix education. The reality is it's fixable. We hear a lot of people talk about the Mississippi Miracle. There's nothing miraculous that occurred in Mississippi. Miracles are unexplainable. Mississippi did, and sound policies, when Oklahoma did the same thing. And so voters need to really study where we've been. We passed the Reading Proficiency Act in Oklahoma, and 2 years later we repealed it. And so even some of the folks I'm running against were part of that repealing of something that we should have done 10 years ago. This isn't going to fix itself overnight, but 1 out of 4 of our 8th graders not being able to read is unacceptable. And so as I think about these issues, education, fixable, we can move the needle. It is going to take some time. It didn't happen overnight in Mississippi, but they've moved mountains from 50th in reading proficiency to inside of 20 now. That's remarkable. It's common sense, though, what we need to do. Comprehensive tax reform, we've got to get serious about it if we're going to be competitive, like a lot of other states that have figured this out, whether it's Tennessee, Texas, Florida, and others. They're winning the net migration race and a jobs race, and Oklahoma should be competitive in that space. And then the public safety and crime thing, I'm the only candidate that has a background to address this. I'm the only candidate that has actually took an oath to protect and serve. I'm the only candidate who's laid hands on very dangerous people. I'm tested in this regard during civil unrest, and I will hammer the crime crisis and the drug crisis infiltrating our state day 1 as governor.
Okay, anything else you think we're missing here? Anything else you would like to touch on?
No, I just like to clear up what, a misreported article on KOCO about the use of flock cameras from a OK2A forum. They did correct it, but to be clear, I, Chip Keating, support flock cameras. I'm a public safety former state trooper. they are very valuable, but the question was, do you support legislative oversight of flock cameras, which I absolutely support. I don't want big tech being able to monetize our privacy and our data, but I want law enforcement to have the tools because they're very effective. When there's an Amber Alert or something and those cameras can hone in on where the perpetrator is, it has saved children's lives, it has saved lives, missing people, and so I'm very supportive of it. And so I want to clear the air because that was misreported a couple of days ago and corrected.